Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Hey, Twisted listeners, I want to talk to you guys about a really cool product that I found while I was on the search for something to help me with my anxiety. Now, as many of you know, I love small businesses. I always want to support them. I love the Pacific Northwest. And as some of you may or may not know, I suffer from a lot of anxiety. Diva and I both do, actually. And I've had a really hard time with conventional medicines because I really don't like putting that type of stuff in my body. And I've never really been successful with THC products because they actually make me more paranoid. So when CBD became a thing, I was super interested in trying it, and it's been really amazing. And one brand in particular has sort of satisfied all the things that I care about when supporting a brand. The brand I'm talking about is Pacific Scentsy, and it's a CBD flower brand from the Pacific Northwest. They're actually located in Oregon, and it's a team of only 3 people. So you know that these people put their heart and soul into what they do, and it really shows in their product. Now, these guys have actual flower, like the plant. So for me, it's really great because I really kind of miss that. I used to smoke when I was younger and it just became a problem for me. So it's really nice to actually be able to smoke the plant rather than wondering like, what's in these gummies? What's in this vape? Like you just have the actual flower. So it's super natural. It's really easy to smoke and it's really, really awesome. They also offer pre-rolls and keef. So whatever you like to smoke, they've got you covered. Now, like I said, I use this instead of THC, but Pacific Scentsy said you can also use their products with the THC you already smoke, and it's just going to help relax you more, which sounds good to me. You can check them out at www.pacificscentsy.com to see all the cool products they have and learn more about their company. So if this is your kind of thing, or if you've never tried it but you're interested, definitely check them out. Once again, www.pacificscentsy.com. Remember, Twisted listeners, stay off our lists, but also stay relaxed. Bye.
Welcome to the Getting Down and Wordy podcast ad.
What do we do on this podcast?
Well, it's the first musical podcast.
Can I try that again in real words so that people can understand?
Fine. We talk about the intersection of popular music and language.
Oh, can we also talk about Eurovision?
Okay.
Find us on Apple and Spotify.
We are a Podmoth Network podcast.
Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Diva.
And this is Twisted Listeners, a podcast about murder
And lists.
And we're brought to you by the Podmoth Podcasting Network. Check them out. They have so many good podcasts. We love them all. And the roster is, they're trying to not grow it too quickly, but a lot of people want to be on the network because it's such a rad network. So check them out. It's a really supportive place. Everybody on there is rad. So this week we are doing
mall murders. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a Christmassy topic. I was just at a mall yesterday celebrating being COVID free and breathing the free air again.
Breathing in COVID particles and not getting sick.
Exactly.
You just had it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Very fun. So
I still haven't gone to a mall, but I can now because I tested negative on day 5. It was technically day 4 after I took the test, but I was sick the day before I tested, so I'm counting it as day 5 because I'm pretty sure had I tested a day early, I would have come up positive.
Right.
Yeah.
It's from when you get symptoms, not really when you test. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's day 5 and now I'm feeling better. This is only like day 6 or 7 or whatever. I guess this would be day 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
COVID ain't got shit on me. Anyway, the cold I had before was way fucking worse, but I feel very lucky. So
there's many things going around. You have a whole menu right now of things you can get sick from. So
yeah, I can't wait for what's next. I hope it's the stomach flu. No, just kidding. That would be fucking horrific.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Anyway, so yes, mall murders, hoping to not ever be subject to any of these.
I've learned that mall parking lots are very frightening.
They are, dude. I don't fuck around in those. Like
in general, like also just like ladies, especially lady listeners, like fucking be careful in parking lots. Just want to say that in general, especially at night or like, you know, I think it's kind of an area we don't think about in terms of safety, but like
I do. Oh my
Be on
God.
your fucking guard in a parking lot. Like,
I, as a full-grown adult fucking woman, run. Anytime I'm in a fucking, especially if it's like a parking garage, and especially if it's
those
like
are scary.
nobody else is in there, I am fucking running like my shit's on fire. Like, I don't care.
And people scope out shit too, especially in LA. I think there's been some like muggings where people like follow people from Best Buy who bought a TV too. You know what I mean? Like, the people can like track you if you buy something valuable. So like,
and you know what? Of all the things that could happen, like, please just rob me. You know, like, I feel like that's best case scenario for the attacks that occur. But I don't want any of that to happen, obviously.
No.
And I don't give a fuck if somebody sees me running like a psycho. Like, that's so much better than getting like murdered. So that's
at least you'll look kind of crazy and like wily, and people won't want to target you. So
exactly, it's a good deterrent as well. So guys, don't worry if you look stupid. Just do what keeps you safe. Like, that's the most important thing. So
exactly.
Anyway. We can skip all the fanfare. You guys know where to find us online. If you don't, just go back one episode and we'll tell you. And go back one episode anyway. Our last topic was really good. So
it was, yeah.
All right, so you chose, so I'm going to go first. And this one I kind of chose in a way, like, you put it on the list and I was like, oh, this is peripherally like connected. There is a mall murder in here, or a murder that took place beginning in a mall. But it was a good excuse to do like a bigger case that I find pretty interesting. So
there's a mall moment.
There is a mall moment. So this is the case of the Neelleys. This is Judith and Alvin Neelley. This case is often compared to Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka, but it's not nearly as well known. I think probably because of everything that happened with Karla Homolka being released is a big deal that made the case, like, kind of shot it into the true crime, sphere of like a forever case. This doesn't have the same outcome, so that could be why.
Okay.
I'm just going to jump in. Judith Ann Adams grew up in a rough home. She was born in Murfreesboro, Tennessee in 1964. I do believe she was an only child. Her alcoholic father died in a motorcycle accident when she was only 9 years old. There's not a lot known about her young life beyond that, but it gives you a pretty good idea of how things were for her. It wasn't a great life. She definitely lived with her mother, and she lived with her mother into her adulthood off and on. She just seemed really angry at the world. It's fair. 9 years old is a bad time for something like that to happen.
Yeah.
When she was only 15, she somehow met a 26-year-old car thief from Georgia named Alvin Neelley. Alvin was immediately taken by Judith, who was a child.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't like this right away. But, okay.
So he's 26, she's 15, and he falls in love with her, and she falls right back in love, which is that even a thing? The two ran off and got married, which apparently you could do in Tennessee at that time. And I'm not going to speak as to whether or not you still can, but I'm going to say that wouldn't super surprise me.
I know in many states, I don't know if Tennessee is one of them, but I know in many, many, many states you can get married as a child.
Yeah, that's fucking insane.
Yeah. Like, what is, like, with a parent's signature or some shit. And I'm like, no.
What I want to know in America is, what is the point of being a child? Did you hear about that 10-year-old that they're going to try as an adult? That is the most depraved thing I've ever fucking heard.
Dystopian is the word.
Let's just not call them children. When they're out of the womb, they're just tiny adults, because that's how we fucking treat them in our fucking sick ass society.
Dystopian as fuck. Yeah, there's a podcast I really like called Someplace Underneath, and they did like a 4-part series on child marriage laws in America, and it's really horrific. Yeah.
I can't imagine. Like, it's so fucked up. So anyway, they got married, but first Alvin had to divorce and ultimately abandon his first wife along with his 3 children that he had with her. So he divorced and deserted his family so that he could marry his child bride.
Bride, yeah.
Very, very nice.
Great.
From there, the two got married in 1980 and went on an armed robbery spree.
All right.
So for about a year or so. And they didn't even slow down a little bit when Judith was pregnant with twins. She was also still under the age of 18. I think she was like 16 when she had her kids. The two were finally arrested after about a year of this. And Judith was put in a youth development center in Rome, Georgia, which is basically like juvie. And that's where she gave birth while Alvin was in prison for his part. She was allowed to keep the kids, which, okay, you're just going to let this child bride in juvie jail, raise her children. Fine. So I think the two ended up in Georgia because Alvin was originally from there, but they also spent some time in Tennessee and Alabama, just kind of traveling between all these areas. In early September 1982, which is a few months after Judith turned 18, she was freed from the center. About just a few months after that, 2 employees of that youth development center were attacked. First, a man named Ken Dooley was shot 4 times while inside his home. This is on the evening of September 10th, 1982.
Okay.
He survived. It was like a drive-by kind of thing. So he survived this, but the very next night, another employee of this place, Linda Adair, had her home set on fire by a Molotov cocktail.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
While police were at her home after the fire was put out, she received a call from a young woman who said, quote, "You both will die before the night's over," referring to this woman, Linda, and her coworker, Ken.
Okay.
Yes.
Ooh,
Shortly
spooky.
thereafter, yes, the local sheriff received a similar call with the same young woman telling him that the two would die for the abuses she suffered while at the center.
Okay.
So whoever's doing this, I wonder who it could be,
Hmm.
wants it to be known. Like, she wants to tell
Yeah.
people what's going on, right?
What the story is. Yeah. Shares a
Mhm.
whole narrative.
Yeah. So it's a real weird choice for her to do this, but it was a good clue for the detectives. So they used them as such, and they started putting together a list of young women who had recently been released from the home. Meanwhile, Judith and Alvin were out and about in Georgia and decided to take their crime spree to the next level now that they were able to resume it after both being released. I will remind you that they have custody of their 2 young children.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Now we're going to talk about Lisa Milliken. She was a 13-year-old girl living in Georgia in a home for troubled young girls called the Harpst Home. She was not happy there. She didn't have any friends there. She'd come from a really rough background. So she was the type that would run away quite often. Even in a home for troubled girls, she was one of the more problematic ones.
More
And
troubled.
yeah, and the girls were friends with each other, but not her. So she was
Okay.
truly alone in this situation.
Ugh, yeah, that's hard.
Yes. On September 25th, 1982, she was with a group of these girls at a supervised outing at the Riverbend Mall in Rome, Georgia. She was playing video games, sort of hanging out, but unlike the other girls, she was basically by herself because she didn't have any friends. And she struck up a conversation with a slightly older teen. This teen was, of course, 18-year-old Judith Neelley. Judith invited her to come back to her hotel where she'd been staying with her husband and 2 kids, wanted her to hang out, drink, whatever, basically just not go back to this group home. And Lisa was like,
Yeah.
"Hell yeah, I'm in,"
Right.
I mean, that's going to appeal to her. She's a 13-year-old, she wants to be cool. She's got this.
Yeah, which
older-
Judith knows is going to work. Yeah.
Right, because she was her.
Coming from a
essentially.
similar background. Yeah.
Yeah. So she went willingly with Judith. Now, once in the car, they drove around aimlessly for a while. I think they drove into Alabama. And then they ended up at a hotel in Alabama. So they took her
Okay.
pretty far from her original location. I don't think at this point that I don't think she was nervous or concerned, because nothing had happened. But from there, things took a turn, and Judith and Alvin tied Lisa up, raped and beat her, and then held her captive for 3 days. Now, during the day, Judith would drive Lisa around in the car with the kids in the backseat. And at night, she would be handcuffed to the bed, but made to sleep on the floor after being sexually assaulted.
Mhm.
Finally, on September 28th, without Alvin, which I don't know where he was, Judith drove Lisa to an area called Rocky Glade, which was over a large canyon. So basically like a hiking area / nature trail kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also in Alabama. She told Lisa that she was going to inject her with something to put her to sleep and then drive away so Lisa couldn't tell police where to find her. In reality, Judith was afraid that Lisa was going to go to the police and she'd get caught, right? She then had Lisa lie down and used a hypodermic needle filled with Drano and also liquid plumber.
Oh, God.
Yes. She injected these into each side of her neck because she had read
Ew.
somewhere that it would kill a person if you did that to
Oh
them.
my God. That's like Hillside Strangler move.
Yes. It's just, I mean, that's what I was thinking in my head too.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Lisa did not die, but started being like, this really hurts. Like, my neck is burning. Please help me. Please stop.
Yeah.
Judith continued to inject her in the arms, legs, and buttocks. And Lisa started begging to just please take me back to Harp's home. Like, you don't have to do this. I won't tell anybody. Please just take me back. Instead, Judith told her, why don't you stand at the edge of the canyon, look out on the canyon. And while she was doing this, Judith took out a gun and shot her in the back at point blank range.
Oh my God.
Lisa, fell backwards onto Judith rather than forwards into the canyon. And she got blood on Judith's jeans. So Judith had to then shove her over the edge, then threw the hypodermic needles over the edge, then took her blood-stained jeans off and threw those over the edge as well. She obviously had clothing in her car because they live like a transient lifestyle.
Right.
She changed and drove away.
And she's by herself. There's no Alvin.
There's no Alvin, but she's not exactly by herself.
Right.
Her 2 kids are asleep in the back of the car.
Okay, but still, it's just like usually you're like kind of in these killer couple situations,
They're
you're
doing
kind
it
of like
together.
Yeah, or you're kind of like leaning towards blaming the man, or there's going to be a defense later of like, oh, well, he made me do it, you know?
Well, yeah, that does come into play. So you're not wrong there. On the evening of September 29th, a call came into the sheriff's office telling them where they could find the body of a young girl who had been missing from Harp's home. The woman who called said, quote, y'all looking for Lisa Ann Milligan on run from the Harp's home? This caught the attention of the police because saying on run is not something that like normal, like people outside the system would say. I don't want to say normal, but like people who are not in the system. That is definitely like slang only within the community of people who have been in and out of these types of homes.
Okay.
So they're like, okay, this is somebody who knows the system who's calling us, right? Yeah. So they give them this caller, this young woman gives them the location of Lisa's body, and they go and find her. They also find the syringes and they find the bloody pants hanging over like a tree branch. They'd caught on a tree branch. They also found a bunch of like trash and other stuff. They didn't know what was what, so they take everything back for processing. And in the meantime, they begin the hunt for this woman. So they're like, okay, this has to be a woman who was in the system, right? So now we have police in Alabama looking for a young woman in the system who knew something about a murder. And we have police in Georgia looking in the system for a woman who was in the system who had actually lived specifically at, this youth detention center and was attempted murder and arson, right?
Yeah.
So these 2 different states are basically looking for a very similar person who they would have had no idea was the person they were looking for had she not called in and given them this information, So it's like, she probably could have got away with this, but she for whatever reason called in and told them where these bodies were.
It. She definitely enjoys reveling in the fact that she did it.
Yeah, she wants them to know. Okay, so we have both these places looking. Alabama's looking, Georgia's looking. Meanwhile, on October 4th, 13-year-old Debbie Smith had been walking home alone, again in Rome, Georgia, when she was approached by a young woman in a brown car with 2 small children inside. The woman offered her a ride, but she declined. Now, I don't know how it got weird, but it got weird enough that she went and told the police what happened. It's also not clear, I don't necessarily think she was from a home or anything. She was just a girl walking.
Just walking, yeah.
She could have just been scared and didn't have any previous interactions with the police to make her not want to talk to them, so she went and told them what happened. That same day, a couple named Janice Chapman and John Hancock, and I'm not making that up, his name is fucking John Hancock.
Okay.
If anybody doesn't know, one of the old things when you're asking somebody for their signature is to ask them for their John Hancock. So
yeah, that's an old person thing to know. So I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah, because people are like, why is she telling me that it's John Hancock? Yeah, so it's because it used to be a super common name, and this is in the 80s, so it's still a little late for that. But anyway, so this young couple, I think they're teens. In fact, I know they are walking when a woman in a brown Dodge approached them, offering them a ride. She said she was lonely and wanted somebody to talk to. So the couple was like, yeah, it's just one woman by herself. Why not? It's safe. So they get inside the car, they start driving, and all of a sudden this woman gets on a CB radio that she has in her car. And she calls another car. She identified herself over the CB as, quote, Lady Sundown. So that's like her CB, like,
Wow. Okay, so they
whatever.
think they're cool. They think
Yeah.
they're really cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're going to love this. She calls the man on the other end of the CB Knight Rider.
Oh my God. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go, everyone stop, pause. If you haven't already, like I always do, go look at a picture of Alvin Neelley.
Yeah.
That's not
That's not Knight Rider.
A Knight Rider, he is not, my
No,
friends.
no, not fucking
He's a
at all.
dweeb. He's a fucking dweeb. Yeah.
And my next note was because they're fucking cool, and they're not.
Yeah. No.
So she had this man meet up with them. Obviously, it's Alvin, and he had their 2 kids with him. So the couple's like, this is fucking weird, but they've got kids with them. It's probably fine. John said, they told him, like, why don't you get in and ride with Knight Rider, whatever the fuck. And he did. I think at this point he was starting to get a little nervous and didn't really know what was going on, but maybe also felt like it was best to just cooperate because who knows where this was going,
Yeah.
Whatever he was feeling, they all drove for a bit till they got to a road, and they instructed John to get out of the car. Like, get out of the car and walk away. Just walk down that road. And he's like, okay. As he's doing this, Judith shoots him in the back. He falls to the ground. They leave him for dead. Now, he survived, but he was smart and he played dead until they drove away. He then went to get help, but unfortunately, he never saw Janice again. The last time he saw her, she was in Judith's car, and both cars drove away after they shot him. Again, with the children inside.
Oh my God. Yeah, you can forget, in case you forgot that they're there, there's kids.
There's kids.
Being there. Yeah.
Just being there. So at first, he goes to police, and they don't believe him. They're like, that's a crazy story. That didn't happen. Like, but his girlfriend, Janice, she is missing. So he's like almost kind of a suspect. They're like, well, this guy's spinning some weird ass fucking tale. But eventually they realize, like, oh, woman in a brown car. There's a 13-year-old who came to us and said that this woman approached her as well. Maybe we should, take this a little more seriously. So they think, okay, why don't we play the tape of the young woman's voice who called us about the arson attacks and the attempted murder and see if they recognize the voice. So they play the tape of Judith calling into the sheriff and being like, both those motherfuckers are going to die or whatever.
Yeah.
And both of them are like, that's the voice of the woman. 100%. That's who approached us. The guy, John Hancock here was like, that's the woman who shot me. Like, for sure. He's like positive.
Okay. Yeah.
So now police have a ton of clues. They start to narrow down the list of potential women from the youth center. And eventually they came up with the name Judith Neelley, as she was the only one to fit the bill of like, just left, had kids, all these kind of components are coming together.
Yeah.
However, they didn't know where she was. Luckily for them, it did not take long at all for her to be arrested in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, once again, for passing bad checks. So these attacks took place on October 4th. She was arrested October 9th. So she's just on a fucking spree. She and Alvin together. So Alvin is arrested like 2 or 3 days later, kind of for the same thing because they had been looking for him. So once detectives hear they're both arrested, they drive from Georgia to Tennessee to interview both her and Alvin. People from Alabama detectives come as well. Judith was like stoked. Just like the phone calls that she made, she was super excited to be talking to the cops, right? Fucking wild. She tells them everything. She's like, I don't need a lawyer. I'll tell you everything you want to know, and recounts what happened to Lisa and then also to Janice. Alvin also cooperated, giving up the location of Janice's body, which had been dumped along a rural road outside of Rome, Georgia. They both admitted to doing to her basically exactly what they did to Lisa, but without the injections. Because in truth, that wasn't part of their torture. Like, I think Judith really thought that was going to kill her. And when she realized it wasn't, they're like, all right, we'll just shoot her. So
and
Alvin...
she was going off script. She was experimenting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the second time they killed her, on the side of the road. Alvin was there and he just told Judith, like, shoot her. So Judith shot her once and she didn't die and she was like screaming, I guess. So Judith shot her twice more in the chest.
Ugh.
So pretty fucked up. But they held her in the hotel, raped and assaulted her for like 3 days and then murdered her. At this point, Judith also admitted to being the perpetrator of the firebombing and the shooting of Ken Dooley. So they've got 2 murders, an attempted murder, and an arson, right? To avoid the death penalty, Alvin pleaded guilty to the murder of Janice Chapman and was given 2 life sentences, one for that and then one for the shooting of John Hancock. Judith was tried for the murder of Lisa Milliken and was given at the age of 18, and while, by the way, pretty visibly pregnant with her 3rd child, a death sentence.
Holy shit.
Mhm. This was handed down by the judge after the jury suggested life without parole.
Oh, okay.
Jury
So the
was
judge is like really into this. Yeah.
Yes,
He's one of those.
Because Alabama, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So much like with the Ken and Barbie killers, you know, Paul and Carla, Judith's defense tried to paint her as a victim of her husband, but it didn't really fly because, 1, we're in America, and 2, like, she very clearly did most of the murdering, like, on her own.
On her own. Yeah. That's like very unusual too.
It is, right? Like, she was really kind of...
She was into it.
I think it was maybe her idea. I mean, although, listen, I'm not going to say that Alvin, who, when he was 26, married a 15-year-old, was not into the idea of, like, raping children. Like, obviously, he was down for that. That's
very
definitely
much,
his thing. But I do think that she was pretty obviously more involved than she was trying to say.
Yeah.
And
she took a lead on the murdering for sure.
She really did. And the jury, I think, did kind of take pity on her a little bit because of her defense taking that stance that, like, she was abused her whole life. You know, he got into her brain when she was only 15, you know, but the judge was like, nah. However, many years later, so in 1998, she had exhausted all of her appeals, and they're basically like, we're going to put you to death, right? So it's been like, she's been on death row for like 14 years at that point. She's what, 32? They're going to put her to death. It's insane. There was a governor, I forgot to write down his name, who was leaving the governorship in Alabama. He didn't really believe in the death penalty, which is probably why they kicked him out of Alabama. And on his last day, he commuted her sentence, which he had the right to do. So he gave her, so he gave her life. And then for some reason, I think you automatically get the option of parole in that instance. So 15 years later, she was able to apply for parole. So starting, I think, in like, what would that be? Like 2013. In 2021, I think, was the first time she was actually granted the possibility, and she turned it down, saying that she wasn't ready to do it, and she didn't want to put the victims' families through that. The victims' families are like, we don't give a fuck. Like, you're not doing us any favors. Like, we still have to live this every time the possibility of parole even comes up. Basically, like, we want you dead. The fact that you're not dead is really upsetting to us. She did also say that she would be applying for parole, but just not at that time. So it's like this big fucking thing. Alvin, who obviously is a little bit of a footnote in this, despite obviously being like a depraved piece of shit, just quietly served his sentence until he died in 2005 in prison in Georgia. But for Judith, even if she gets parole in Alabama, they're just going to ship her right over to Georgia because she killed Lisa in Alabama, but she killed Janice in Georgia. So if she ever gets out in Bama, she's going straight to Georgia to serve the rest of her sentence there. So she'll never get out. Like, it doesn't really matter what happens.
No, I don't think
she will never, ever be free again. So,
no.
And of course, she's turned to God and blah, 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 blah.
You know, sure.
There it is. But so that's
what was the mall one? Was it Lisa? I missed the mall.
Oh, so she was in an arcade at the Riverbend Mall. Yeah, Lisa.
Lisa
at the Riverbend Mall.
I thought.
They were at an outing at the Riverbend Mall. Yeah. Gotcha. And that's where she got her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Like I said, it's like a very like, it's just like a little dip into the mall.
They came up in the mall search. They came up.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where she. I mean, it wasn't really it wasn't an abduction. It was, but like it was a willing.
It was alluring.
Away. Yeah, it was alluring. Yeah.
Also, the one picture, one of the main pictures that comes up of these fucking people, I'll post it on the Instagram, has her wearing a Confederate flag hat, and they're in front of a big Confederate flag, and he's like jokingly pointing a gun at her.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this is a chaotic picture, first of all, and second of all, fuck the Confederate flag.
Yeah, probably good for her defense though. Like, see, he was violent or whatever.
The flag is violent too, so
exactly. Fuck them both. All right, what's your case?
All right, so my case is fucking wild. This is a Dateline. I was really pissed I couldn't find the Dateline. It was too old, but I remember watching this on Dateline and being like riveted. It's insane. I got the transcript of the Dateline though, so this is I'm going to call it the Town Center at Boca Raton Murders.
Okay,
I'm going to call it because there's multiple murders. It's a variety pack here. So this happened in 2007 in Boca Raton, Florida. So we're going to start out here with Nancy and Joey Bochicchio. Nancy is, I forgot, she's like 40 something, and Joey is her 7-year-old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
They are super cute, super close mom and daughter. Nancy was originally from the Bronx, so kind of like a New York Italian, duo here.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Joey was really into ballet and golf and cheerleading. This really stood out to me as a random fact about a child. She loved shellfish, which I think is quite unusual, and also is my passion. So I just wanted to
Ollie
note that.
too. Ollie is like
good.
a huge fish kid. He'll eat raw fish. He's always like asking for it. So yeah,
that means he has good taste.
He does.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she was kind of like, mature and cultured, I think, Joey.
Yeah.
She was really just beloved by everyone in her family. And by the way, Joey's middle name was Noelle. And her birthday was only 5 days later on the 17th. So it's kind of like a Christmas baby. And here's just a detail that like rips my heart in case you wanted to be sadder. Nancy didn't think she could have kids because she was 40 when she got pregnant, and it's kind of late in the game there. And she called Joey her miracle daughter, and she was actually due on Christmas originally, so they called her Christmas Angel.
Oh,
really sad. Yeah, I know. It's about to get sadder. So,
oh god,
on December 12th, just a 2 day, probably when this comes out, it will be that day.
Yeah.
So weird.
It will be that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fuck.
So December 12th, they go out Christmas shopping at the mall, the town center at Boca Raton.
Mm-hmm.
So also Christmassy, right?
Right.
After shopping for about an hour, security camera footage shows them leaving the mall, walking to the parking lot. They look happy and normal. You can see the picture online, and this is the last time they're seen alive.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I hate this.
Later that same night, a mall security guard finds Nancy's car idling in a mall parking lot, and looks inside and finds Nancy and Joey inside. They had both been shot point blank in the head.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
The fuck?
Nancy had a zip tie around her neck.
Oh, come on, dude.
Which is brutal. Yeah.
So gnarly.
Those don't have a lot of give,
No, they're so tight and so horrible.
Yeah. And both of Nancy's wrists were broken.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also both wearing goggles that were covered in black cloth, like custom, goggles with a little cloth inserted.
This is really bizarre.
Yeah.
Like
it gets wilder. Yeah.
Okay.
So investigators will say that they think, or they found evidence basically, that Nancy was forced to drive to a nearby ATM and withdraw $500, then made to come back to the mall parking lot where they were both at some point shot in the head. I didn't read any explanation of the broken wrist. Maybe she fought back, or maybe there were zip ties there before, or I don't know. So investigators quickly realized that this crime bears a whole lot of similarities to a carjacking and abduction of a woman and her 2-year-old son that took place from the same fucking mall in August of that year of 2007.
Okay.
So a couple months earlier. And the way that this woman describes the abduction in the Dateline, she's like Jane Doe. She doesn't like have an identity, but the way that she describes her abduction is fucking harrowing. So I'm going to go quite and gives you a sense of what Nancy went through.
Diva.
What?
Diva.
What?
Okay. This is so exciting, but we'll talk about it at the end. But I'm just very excited. Okay.
Oh my God.
That's
okay.
all. Okay. Go ahead.
You're scaring me.
No. It's good.
I got scared.
I just realized what this case is. Okay. Sorry. Keep going. Oh my God. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm scared. Okay. All right. Yeah, so it's a really harrowing experience. So I'm going to kind of go in depth about what she says happened to her, because it's insane. I mean, just put yourself in her shoes, and you're also her 2-year-old son's in the backseat. It's like fucking insane.
Right.
So she literally puts her son in the car seat. She's leaving the mall, puts the stroller in the back, and like a second later, she gets in the car, and this guy is in the back with a gun to her son and says, "Get in the car."
Oh God.
Like drive. Yeah. So she was forced to drive to an ATM. She took out $600. He wanted more, but the ATM was like, no, sometimes they have that like limit.
Right.
He then kind of switched with her, I believe. It was just like he started driving. He bound her ankles with zip ties and zip tied her neck to the headrest.
Right. Yes. Oh my God. So she,
and she was blinded by like sunglasses and then blackout goggles at another time. And the zip tie around her neck was actually making her choke. Like she was like freaking out, right? Strangling her. So he actually cut the zip tie off her neck because she was like, I can't fucking breathe. And so he cut it off.
Wow.
At one point, there's this weird little moments that are wild. At one point, her son drops his bottle and starts crying. And the attacker, hands it back to him. Like makes sure to stop and get the kid his bottle, you know? So it's like these weird little moments of like pretend kindness.
Right.
And so, yeah, just that was weird to
me. No,
me.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
At one point, so he drives around for about 2 hours. Jesus. And this Jane Doe says that he did not know the roads. She didn't think he was local because he was like a little confused. He eventually takes her back to that same mall parking lot, town center at Boca Raton, puts the zip tie back on her neck, and then says he's going to call someone, and she can tell them to come get her. Like, say your car's broken down, and she does. I think it's her son's father, who she wasn't with, but she dials, they dial him up, and she says, my car's broken down, come get me. So he says to Jane Doe, quote, now when the police come, I want you to tell them that I'm short, fat, and black.
Oh, wow.
Which, who's the woman who did that? Who blamed a black man for her? Who's that person?
Which one?
There's like, there's two. The one who like drowned her kids and said it was a black man.
Well, what's her face? That fucking asshole, Diane Downs.
Yeah, Diane Downs much like, fuck this racist bullshit. Anyway, and he also says, quote, if I see anything on the news with my face or my picture or my description, I will come after you, which is terrifying.
Yes.
Somewhere on, by the way, I just want to note, this is random, but somewhere online it said, I think police have said this too, that there's no quote unquote forensic evidence that this is linked to Nancy's murder, but like,
come the fuck on.
Yeah, this is obviously the same guy. It's obviously widely thought of as the same person.
Yeah.
This is very specific. The goggles, everything about it is very specific.
Yeah.
So the woman does not say that he's short, fat, and black, which is great. Good for her.
Good for her.
And she's not afraid of his threats. She gives an accurate description of her attacker, and a sketch is produced. He is a white man in his 20s. He's about 6 feet tall. He was wearing sunglasses and a bucket hat with one of those strings below the chin. So you can go see the sketch. And she says, our Jane Doe here, that police, wouldn't you know it, did not believe her at first about her kidnapping.
Of course.
She says that they literally said someone couldn't get themselves out of the zip ties, which she did, like a badass. And they're like, no, you couldn't have done that.
God.
And because the police don't believe her for so long, there's no press. There's no warning to the public that someone's attacking someone in this mall.
Right.
Which could have been cool to do. Yeah. And also, like, why would you make that up? That's so elaborate. Like, why would you make that up?
Right.
I don't see how she would gain from that. Anyway, so another woman, 52-year-old Randy Gorenberg, that previous March also was kidnapped from that parking lot and shot and killed.
Jesus.
So eventually they put it all together. But the cops, they take their time.
Yeah. They look in the opposite direction of the obvious shit. So
yes. She was captured on mall surveillance footage heading to the mall parking lot around 1:15 p.m. So another brazen full daylight attack.
Yep.
911 calls reported the gunshots from the parking lot, I believe, about 39 minutes later. So someone basically took her car and pushed her from the SUV after shooting her and drove away.
Right. Fuck, dude.
By the way, all SUVs too, same kinds of cars.
Yeah.
The SUV was nowhere to be found. Her ID was gone, but she did also have expensive jewelry on that wasn't taken, so it wasn't like a thorough robbery if it was. Her car was later found abandoned behind a Home Depot, and all of her stuff was missing. Her purse was gone, her shoes were gone, and police do think that he might have killed her this time because she resisted too much, and or she didn't actually have an ATM card. I don't know if she had credit cards or what, but she couldn't withdraw cash, basically.
Right.
So, it didn't work. It was, so it was only in November, 8 months after Randy's murder, and I think a couple months since Jane Doe's abduction in August, did they even talk to Jane Doe again to get her story. So she's sitting for months with no cops even addressing it.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's it. I mean, pretty almost it. The murders of Nancy and Joey and Randy and the abduction of Jane Doe are unsolved. It's been featured on America's Most Wanted 3 times and now has a reward for information of up to $400,000.
Jesus.
Suspects haven't really amounted to anything. So I'm not really going to get into them. Like, for instance, one was a homeless man who had Nancy's phone.
That's okay, because I'm going to get into a suspect.
Okay. All right. Was that your freaking out?
Yes.
Okay. So one was like a homeless man who had Nancy's phone, but he said he just found it and like didn't really pan out for like as a suspect in general. I don't
Which
think
also that could totally be legit. Like,
yeah, and I don't think like, no offense to people experiencing homelessness, but I don't think that's the profile here. This guy was quite organized. He had a lot of like resources, you know. I think this guy has some shit together. So at the 10-year anniversary of the murders in 2017, there was some press out about it being still an active investigation, still asking for tips. There were some news stories there. And what's crazy about this, I mean, just like a brief moment of commentary, and then maybe you can talk about your thing. But like, what I find very weird is, does this guy have like a fetish or a thing for specifically abducting a woman with a small child? Because to me, that's insane. And it seems like riskier and scarier. Like, wouldn't you want someone who's alone? Now, the kid can't defend anyone, but still, it just seems like a really weird thing to do that again.
It is strange. And then
who's your suspect?
Well, I don't know if anybody remembers. If if our patrons are listening, you guys will know. But a long time ago, I did a Patreon about. Or wait, no, it wasn't a Patreon. It's actually, you guys can listen to it. I did a single serving episode about Israel Keys.
Yes.
And he is a suspect in these murders. And he is like a very. I don't think he did it, first of all, but he's a very viable suspect in these murders, because look at the picture and tell me that's not fucking Israel Keys.
I mean, it's kind of a nondescript white guy, though. Like,
but Israel Keys was known to wear sunglasses and hats to disguise his the way he looked, as well as even wigs. Sometimes he would wear.
That's true.
Very similar to that. The taking them to the ATM to pull out money was his thing. He would rob banks, and then the people that he murdered, he would take their bank cards and pull money out. He did that to Samantha, I forget her last name.
It does have a little Israel.
It has a lot of Israel Keys in there. It looks so much like him. They don't have travel records for that time, but he was known to travel all over the country, rent cars. He had kill kits everywhere. They're still finding more information about him to this day.
Yeah, geography is not a limit for him, for sure.
No, not even close. Not by a. No. It's like it's in his favor. That's like his thing. The things that make me think he didn't do it. He never claimed it. He said he never killed people who had children. Like, he wouldn't even kill people if he thought they had children, because he had a child. However, what year was this?
2007.
Yeah, so no, he would have had a daughter at that point.
Yeah.
So he probably wouldn't have done it if there were children, because he always said,
if we believe him about that. He also didn't own up to all of his murders.
He absolutely didn't, but the ones that he did own up to, or that were at least fairly certain were his, all fit. Like, no dogs, no kids. He had other things that were varied. So I don't think that the manner of the attack was an issue at all, but I do think the kids, and especially the fact that one of them was killed, to me, also the only other time he ever shot somebody was when they were attacking him, like in that moment. So I don't necessarily think he did it, but there's like 45 fucking Reddit discussions about this. So if anybody's interested in Israel Keys, I just Googled
it, and this Reddit, a big long Reddit thread was the top of the thing. I mean, to me, the reason it doesn't feel like him is less the kids thing and also more like the robbery thing. Like, I don't think he was like big into like, oh, I need this $600. Like, I don't think that's like his
but that's
MO.
why that's how he got caught for Samantha. What is her name? Samantha.
Koenig or Koenig?
Yes. Yeah. The way he got caught was by pulling out money from an ATM using her card. I mean, and this was not the only time he did that.
Interesting.
And he robbed banks for money. Like, that was another thing he did. So that, to me, actually tracks for him.
Yeah. I mean, also the bit where he let that one person go also doesn't feel like him, because he loves murdering.
It's true. But he might have been doing it just because he needed money for the trip or something. You know what I mean? Like, who knows?
But he loves murdering, though. He's Israel Key. That's his favorite.
Well, that's the weird thing, though, is his MO is real hard to keep track of. Like, he doesn't really have a clear, it could be anywhere.
Which is why he's a fascinating serial killer. Like, I hate to say it, but it's like how many cases in the country are him, and we just don't know it because his MO changes, his location changes.
Yeah. But this has
Ugh.
been tied to him mostly because of the description of what he looks like and the
Yeah.
fact that like some parts of it definitely strongly coincide with his MO and
because you
things
can,
that he's
like I
done.
said, you can almost expect anything of him. So
Exactly. So if it's a guy
Yeah.
that looks like him that murdered somebody, it's
Sure.
like, well, might be him. Like, we don't
Yeah.
know. So anyway,
Interesting.
that's why I got excited because I was like,
Oh,
oh my
no,
God,
no.
this is tied to Israel Keys. So
No,
yeah.
good. I'm so glad I didn't catch that. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Just one last point, and this testifies more to like America being fucking insane.
Mhm.
But just insanely, the town center at Boca Raton has played host to 2 other crime moments. In 2019,
Wow.
there was an active. Yeah, in 2019, there was an active shooter threat at the mall where SWAT teams swarmed the whole mall after reports of gunfire. Thankfully, everyone was fine. It was a janitor popping a balloon.
Oh my God.
But also, what a sad country we are that a balloon is popped and a SWAT team has to rush in.
Yeah.
That we're all like this on edge, you know?
Right. I
Um,
mean, and with good fucking reason,
Yeah.
sadly.
The other incident was in April 2022. There was a shooting on the mall property. I think it was the parking lot. And the mall had another active shooter locked down, but thankfully it was also not a mass shooting. But wow. Wow.
Fucking cracking off in Boca Raton. Like,
Yeah, this mall's Wikipedia page has too much on it for a mall. It's very
Yeah.
like a rich read there. So
that's fucking crazy. Wow.
yeah.
Huh. All right. That was,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you did that one.
Yeah, be safe
I didn't
in the
notice it
fucking
on there,
parking
but-
lot.
Yeah.
No, and it's
If I
really
had noticed
scary
it on
because
there, I'd have done it. But yeah.
it's really scary too because I think he was definitely watching this like mom and daughter and like watching them arrive, watching them like he was stalking out that car, like he was waiting and prepared.
Right. I mean, another reason that it feels like it could be Israel Keys or someone like that, he didn't know the area very well and the attack stopped because he didn't live there. You know what I mean?
And also the way it is over organized in certain ways too. Like he's bringing all this equipment, he's brought the goggles, he's brought the zip ties. Well, doesn't he zip tie as well?
Mm-hmm.
Or doesn't he do that?
No, he does. Yeah, he's had zip ties. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's very, I mean, I don't think he did it, but like I would never like bet money on it for
Never
sure.
rule it out.
You know?
No.
No, not by a mile. Anyway, wow. Okay. Pretty fucking interesting.
Woo, yeah.
There's part 1, guys. Hope you guys like it. We're going to do part 2
stay
in a
safe at
couple
the
of
mall.
days. Yeah. Also, I hope you all enjoy our first paid ad, which will be on this episode. You already heard it. I hope you enjoyed it.
They're exciting. We're in the big time.
We are. And also, it's a company that I'm like stoked to be like working with. So that's really cool. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Follow us on Instagram. Hit us up on Instagram via email. Check us out on Patreon. Tell your friends, like, rate, review. And until the next half, stay off our.
There was a delay.
Liz. Yeah, bye.